Hey everybody, it's Dave Duford here from Final Expense Agent Mentor at feagentmentor.com, where I help agents like you succeed in selling insurance. And I'm continuing a series of videos that I kind of started off maybe a couple of months ago, doing actual reviews of books I've read. One of my biggest objectives of the year is to read a book a week, and I've done a really good job so far doing that. As the old saying goes, readers are leaders. And while I've always been a voracious reader, I've never been so disciplined enough to get, and knock down as much as 50 in a year. So that's my goal. And part of me keeping me accountable to that goal is to do these videos with you guys so that you guys know I'm keeping my goals in place. But I also want to share with you what I'm reading to kind of stimulate your desire as well to maybe look at some sources to help you grow in the areas of persuasion and marketing. So what we're going to talk about today is 7 books that I read over the past 4 weeks. And I'm going to kind of give you my synopsis of each one. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Some of these I like, some of these I didn't. And, I'm just going to kind of give you my overview and where I think these are appropriate. And where, hey, how you doing, Lawrence? Nice to see you. And where I think maybe you could skip on these kinds of books. So let's go ahead and just jump in here. So the first one I'm going to show you is, all right, guys, I got eviscerated last time when I talked about this. Anytime I bring up the big man here, everybody gets all upset. So I don't care. But I do want to ask you to check this book out. It's Trump's Think Big. It is one that I've read his original, which is The Art of Making the Deal. And I would highly recommend that if you had a choice between that book or this book, to get that book. There's a bunch of Trump books. This is the second one I've read. I think if you read his original book that was done back in the 80s, that is really everything you need to read about Trump, to see who he is, to see his amazing career through New York City real estate, and to really get a good idea of how the guy thinks and what he does. This was okay. I mean, it's a primer. I felt it was a little bit more hypey. This was done, I think, in the late 2000s. I don't know. It's funny. I used to hate Trump before he became president, and I remember him teasing that he would run for president back in 2012, and I thought, you're a moron. Shut up. But that changed for me personally, but that's besides the point. But I think a lot of the reason I don't like him is kind of that hypeness stuff. And I kind of sense that through this book. And I'm just saying this from the standpoint of learning to get an idea of how this man operates and how his business has been. You're going to kind of get a sense of it. It was co-authored by another guy named Bill Zanker, so it kind of read like abnormally, not like a normal book or maybe an autobiography like it likes. I would much rather steer you towards The Art of Making the Deal. That is the one to read. That really encapsulates who Trump is, and whether you like him or hate him, it really gives you a good idea about what he's gone through to develop his business, the ups and downs. So start with that. This one I would just skip. It's okay. Now, staying on the same subject here, this one is fantastic. So this book here is called Win Bigly by Scott Adams, and you can see down here, you may recognize the dog there. That is the Dilbert dog, Dogbert, as they say. Scott Adams is the guy behind the Dilbert comics, and a really interesting guy. I never really cared for Dilbert. I never got into the comic stuff. It never was anything I was interested in, but I came across this book. It was suggested on Amazon because I bought The Art of Making the Deal. I bought another Donald Trump book, and then this one was suggested. I thought, this is interesting because the title is Win Bigly, Persuasion in a World Where Facts Don't Matter. And that's an obviously enticing title, because what are we talking about? We just elected a president, right? Certainly facts should matter, right? So this book is not only entertaining. Scott Adams is an excellent writer, but it is a deep dive into the complex world of persuasion. There's 2 reasons to buy this. Number one is to get a primer on why Donald Trump is the ultimate salesperson, okay? And then the second reason is for people who just don't understand how he won the election. This will explain things tremendous. Scott called the election far in advance of everybody else. He lost speaking gigs. He lost his reputation in the community of entertainment and the media because of his stance in believing that Trump would win. And he talks about why he thought that way. He ran a blog. He had a huge Twitter following. I'm sure he still does. I don't follow the guy. But I wanted to throw out a couple of excerpts to kind of talk about kind of the persuasion awesomeness that Trump has. If you remember in the campaign, and I promise this isn't a Trump love fest. This is just trying to give you some samples of this book. He talks in detail about the linguistic kill shots that he used to frame people in a particular manner. If you remember how he called Senator Ted Cruz Lion Ted, and how the genius was in constructing how he said that. It wasn't lying Ted, it was Lion Ted. You know, it was a particular type of name that he gave him. And then when Ted did something, he kind of sold past the sale. So when the senator said something or something happened, people would immediately find ways to prove or justify that Lion Ted terminology. We saw the same thing, of course, Crooked Hillary, Little Marco, hilarious nicknames, of course. But there's a lot of persuasion in here. This is not what you would think it is. This is not a Trump love fest, if you're thinking that's what it is. It is really a deep breakdown on the persuasiveness that Trump exhibits and why it worked. So it's really great to understand why it worked, but also as a salesperson to understand what makes Donald Trump so persuasive to a whole lot of people out there. And there's definitely some basic stuff here at work and some more advanced stuff. But I would absolutely recommend you pick this book up. This is one of my favorite reads of the year so far. Okay, so let's look at some other ones here. So I read this book here. This was suggested by an agent to me. Of course, it doesn't have a cover, but let me show you here. It's from the side. It's The Only Sales Guide You'll Ever Need by Anthony, what's his name here? Anthony Iannarino. Sorry, buddy. Don't mean to mess up your name. I'm used to it. This is what I would consider a basic primer to sales in general. If you've never sold insurance, if you've never sold anything for that matter, and you're wondering how sales works and how the whole process is constructed, this is a good place to start. I didn't really find anything too unique or interesting about it. I've read tons of sales books, so a lot of this is just prep, normal stuff. This isn't anything, amazing or life-changing for me, but I'm talking from the standpoint of somebody who's sold since I'm 33. I've been selling since I was 21, in some sort of form or fashion. So sales has been a part of my career, my entire career for the most part. The one thing that did actually inspire, I got immediately a great idea on a recruiting angle that I'm going to employ, and immediately wrote it down. I don't know why it happened by reading this book, but sometimes when you read books, ideas flash in your mind, and you think of these creative ideas, and it's really important that you capture them, even in books you may not be necessarily super impressed about or may not teach you a ton. All it takes is that one thing that can really light a fire under you and change things in a big positive way. So I sit here and tell you, it's like, well, it's a basic book. If you're new to sales, check it out. But it really actually put me in a hugely positive direction recruiting-wise. And I plan on making this implementation sometime in the next month or two. So anyways, check that out if you want a basic primer. Okay, so I also like reading a lot of Brian Tracy. If you guys have seen a lot of my videos, I talk about Brian Tracy a lot. Brian Tracy is a sales trainer. He's been around a long time. He's got a very cool, relaxed demeanor. He's almost fatherly, grandfatherly even now. He's in his mid-70s. And he's just got this voice, and he relaxes. He's kind of like, he's like that painter, Bob with the fro. God, I can't remember his name. Bob, not Bob Hope, but it's the other guy. He's like, when you watch him, he just puts you in a state of relaxation. You take it all in. You're interested in it. And that's how this guy is. So anything Brian Tracy, and he's very good. His training is excellent. So I read two books here. The first is Just Shut Up and Do It. And then the second one is Negotiation. So the kind of takeaways here, Brian Tracy talks a lot about the same topics in all these books that he does. I think these are good to just piecemeal different aspects of his training that he teaches about success, goal setting, motivation, becoming better at what you do. This is more of like piecemeal things and topics versus his big books. I would suggest starting with one of his bigger books like Maximum Achievement, No Excuses, or the Advanced Sales Training Guide. These are several hundred-page books, as you can see here. These are shorter in length, so you're just going to get a micro education on whatever topic that he's talking about. This one's just good because it's just a basic primer on, focusing on, getting up and getting to action. Of course, a lot of us think that there's some sort of special, formula or silver bullet out there to sell insurance. And that is not the case. You just have to go do it. A lot of people get obsessed with getting aggressively ready to start selling insurance, as John Duggar once said. And the truth is that you get a plan, you get a track to run on, and you have to put it to action. It may not be perfect, but you can always course correct after the fact. And it's much better to course correct after the fact than never course correct at all because you never started. So shut up and do it. It's a good one. Consider it. Negotiation too. Just a kind of basic primer on negotiation. I like another book I think was really good. It's called Negotiate This by Herb Cohen. If you're interested in negotiation, maybe you get a better price on anything you buy, like your vehicle or your house. Excellent book. This guy is still, I believe, a consulting negotiator consultant. He works with big corporate companies, and it's called How to Care But Not That Much. Great book. And it's funny, sometimes these books that seem like they're not sales related actually become incredibly valid. Like the Think Bigly book is fantastic if you sit down and read it and take a good solid read of it. So check that out definitely as well. Okay, I'm going to conclude here with two more books that I think were really good and I would definitely recommend. So the first one, this is actually one I thought was excellent. This is Creative Selling for the 1990s. Ben Feldman, you know him as the greatest life insurance agent that ever lived out of Ohio area. Guy has had an incredible run. He's been gone for a very long time. His son is still around. I believe it's Marv Feldman. And he sells insurance too. But Ben was just a powerhouse for life sales, more or less in the estate market. And his other book here, I'll show you too, is called The Feldman Method. This one's a little bit harder to get. It runs about $50 plus. I think you can find it on Amazon if you're lucky. But anyways, this book is great. Here's why this book is great. This book actually is more of an interview format where the author or somebody interviews Ben on the different aspects of how he sells and what he does. This is a follow-up to the first book, The Feldman Method. But he goes into detail about how he sells the insurance, how he finds the prospects, how he deals with the objections. One of the things he does is he does a medical close. He doesn't ask for a commitment necessarily for money as much as he does to just get the medical done. And so he runs a lot of medicals and comes back with a risk assessment and then sells the deal that's most appropriate for the client then. In an interesting way to get more activity and more volume going. But this was really good because he goes into detail about, like, one chapter is how to sell the key person insurance product, the salary continuation package insured company credit, on and on like this. How to sell a package that guarantees company continuity. So more stuff related to the estate or the business owner market, but excellent sales tactics, scripts that he has in here, and just really explaining how he does what he does. If you like insurance sales, you have to pick up everything about Ben Feldman. This is a definite good one to get. Now, the last book I'm going to cover here, I just finished this up, and this is actually recommended by a guy interviewed. I think he's mentioned it on a Facebook group, but it's called The Successor Positive Mental Attitude by Napoleon Hill. You may remember Napoleon Hill from Think and Grow Rich. That's his most popular book. Also, W. Clement Stone of Combine Insurance. He wrote the introduction forward of the book. This is a really good book, I have to say. It talks a lot about how to change your mindset, to change your results in life, and to take responsibility and give serious consideration about how you think and how you run your life in order to change it for the positive. That's very applicable to all of us, especially us in insurance sales, because ultimately we have to be responsible for our results or lack thereof. And we can't blame anybody else but ourselves if we don't get those results. And positive mental attitude training helps us identify how to look at things in the right light so we can see opportunities where adversity lies. A couple things for me, at least, that I thought were really beneficial. Napoleon Hill talks about Benjamin Franklin's 17 virtues. And if you ever read the autobiography, that's going to be something I'm going to read soon. Ben Franklin talked about how he would list 17 virtues, and as a way to keep himself accountable to becoming a better person, make sure he does that, he would focus on a virtue every week. But anytime he did not exhibit the virtue, he would make a mark as a way to keep himself accountable and make sure that he's following through. Like, for example, temperance is the virtue that they gave an example, which is not, essentially don't eat too much and don't drink too much, and make sure you're monitoring that. And then each week go line by line to the next virtue and so on, and focus your mindset on that while leaving the other one in your subconscious, hopefully to retain there, and then repeat every 13 weeks. So you try four times throughout the year to focus on improving yourself in that particular type of virtue. Of course, Ben Franklin, I didn't realize it till I read just a little bit about him and some of his biographies and write-ups. Ben Franklin was just an incredible man, essentially the exemplary of a Renaissance man. And it's amazing what he did. It's just reading about his early life is incredible. And he did a lot of this self-improvement stuff. And he was kind of one of the first people, at least in America, that focused on the importance of self-improvement. So there is that. That's something I'm actually putting into action. The other thing, a couple of things here. Magnificent Obsession. I thought this was great. It's a chapter in the PMA book. How to be the magnificent obsession with focusing on helping others. I just got done with hey, how you doing, Lakita? He said, I just got done with an interview, a 3-part interview with a great agent named John Duggar. He sells final expense. He's written $2.25 million in final expense in 10 years. He regularly writes $200,000 to $250,000 a year in just final expense, much less anything else. And the cool thing is that when you listen to the interview, you can tell that John loves the people that he deals with. He is obsessed with taking care of these people, making sure that they're satisfied, making sure that they're taken care of, and doing everything possible to the point of even arguably leaving business on the books to make sure that his clients get the best job, get the best deal, and are the best served. And if you look at his success, you can tell he is magnificently obsessed with helping people out and making sure that their welfare is well maintained. And in exchange, what happens is this is why John is so successful in this business, is he's obsessed with helping his clients out, making sure that they're happy, making sure that they're pleased. He delivers his policies personally to each of his clients. He sends out thank you notes. He does everything conceivable to make his connection strong. Whenever there's service calls, he helps handle them all. And yeah, it's a lot of work, but because of that, he runs into so much business he otherwise wouldn't get. And he does all this, guys, on 10 leads a week, 10 direct mail leads a week. He had to work down from 15 a couple of years ago, I remember, because he was just too busy. So $250,000 a year on 10 leads a week, that's pretty incredible. But a lot of that business is because of repeat business, referrals, because of the job that he's done. And that's a part of his positive mental attitude that he has, is that he understands the need of what these people have and why it's important. So if you have any interest in any of these books, what I would recommend is down in the description box below, and you can see the links to 7 of the books that I mentioned. My choice out of all of these to buy, it's hard to choose. If you want a straight insurance sales training book, get the Ben Feldman book. You'll love that. If you'd like a persuasion and sales book, I would say an advanced level one that's entertaining, I would get Think Bigly. And if you just want a self-improvement book, definitely Napoleon Hill's book is the one to get. All of these are good. Any of these are good. If you'll just actually read them and put into action at least some of the training that you're exposed to. If you have any questions or concerns, if you'd like to learn more about what I do in my program, I help agents in the final expense business. I recruit them into my agency and help them gear them up to become successful final expense agents by being personally involved in training and coaching them along the way. You can go to my website. It's feagentmentor.com. Click the contact box to send me a message. I'll be happy to deliver more information how my program works. Again, if you like the video, thumbs up my video, please. Also, subscribe if you haven't already. If you like videos like this, I do 5 a week typically, at least. And make sure you leave a comment below if you have any questions I can help you with. My name is Dave Duford at Final Expense Agent Mentor. Lawrence, Lakita, thanks for joining, guys. And the rest of you, appreciate you watching. Take care.